When Elden Ring Nightreign was first shown off, like a lot of people, I was like, no shot, another DLC? I haven't even finished the other one yet, man. And no, to everyone's surprise, FromSoft was like, no, this is actually a new game. This is Elden Ring Fortnite. And everyone just kind of had to wait around confused and prayed that FromSoft wouldn't make their biggest blunder since this shit, especially considering Miyazaki was not going to be involved in this one either. And now that we have it, I can safely say that after a pretty good amount of hours, I have finally beaten Elden Ring Nightreign, which is more than I can say for Dark Souls 2. So you may be wondering, Michael, is it any good? And to that I say, yes. Kind of. Elden Ring was the culmination of years of iteration on the unique genre that FromSoft had built, taking the combat design they had refined to craft a fully explorable world with the help of George R.R. Martin after he refused to pick up a pen for his own series for the last, 10 or so years. It reviewed well, it sold well, and damn, it played well. Elden Ring was in many ways the magnum opus of the Souls genre that, although not perfect, was probably as close as you could get to it. So understandably, like many love stories, it was hard for FromSoft to leave Elden Ring behind after the DLC, which resulted in them making a whole new game called Elden Ring Nightreign. A 3-player co-op, exploration-driven, boss rush, roguelike, third-person action Souls-like. Pretty straightforward. Roughly the idea with Nightreign is that you're a team of 3 dudes running around killing things in the reimagined version of Elden Ring's starting area, Limgrave. Starting off your run, you'll be given the option of currently 8 different characters, each with their own ability and specialization that make them better at using certain weapons, which changes things a bit from Elden Ring in a way that I personally enjoy. Once everyone selected their character, or had it selected for them,
I thought it was funny.
I'll yell at you.
Oh
wait, shit! It auto
We got
You
two
guys are
archers.
both the
baby.
archers.
Two archers, okay, I was just looking around. You'll be dropped off the battle bus into the lands between. Over the next 2 days, you'll go around killing as many things as you can, looting their corpses to obtain power-ups and items to prepare yourself for a boss at the end of the day. And if you're successful in killing these bosses, it'll be followed by a final boss on the 3rd day called the Night Lord. Defeat this piece of shit and you'll win the run along with some rewards, or more than likely, you'll get domed by some stupid bullshit mechanic and be forced to repeat this process yet again. The most notable thing about Nightreign as compared to Elden Ring is the fundamental co-op nature of its gameplay as well as its gameplay loop. Although solo play is an option, I've heard mixed things about it. Some people said it was too tough on release, now apparently people say it's too easy. I don't know, you'll most likely want to play this 3-player though. It feels like how it's meant to be played. That being said, not all teammates are created equally. Although matchmaking does exist for Nightreign, playing with randoms is a challenge for sure. Communication is pretty limited in the game, so if you're trying to tell your teammates to, try to get out of somewhere, you'll likely just have to violently ping the map to try to get their attention, which, as you can imagine, is not the best form of communication. So I'll say this outright right now. If you don't have friends to play this game with, I'm not saying you won't have a good time with the game, but your experience is going to be greatly diminished. Playing this game with friends is definitely its intended experience. I had a great time with it for that reason, but if you're a solo player, the obvious direction to point you to is to just play Elden Ring. Then, after you do everything there and want more, come to this game for some solo play or try to convince your friends to pick it up. Because of the multiplayer aspect of the game and class system, you'll have what are currently 8 class options to help you specialize into covering gaps in your team or to use a character who might be able to focus on a boss's weaknesses. Which is also another added benefit to being able to communicate with your team, as randoms have a tendency to just kind of play, whatever, which can be bad in some cases, but I'd say most of the time, you're going to be okay with most classes. While we're talking about it, let's go over each class. The Wilder is your jack of all trades. Good for starters, solid ultimate ability that can stun enemies, and a base ability that offers some good mobility. The Guardian is your tank class, and also a bird, which is pretty cool, I guess. Big fan of great shields and halberds, with his ability being very good for picking up your allies. Iron Eye is your ranged archer class, good stun on his ultimate, but not too much other than that I'd say, but if you like those, pick up this guy. The Raider is your maximum strength build character, specializing in any weapon that's larger than his body, with the ability to tank hits and get a big stun for his first ability, and then summon a big damage boosting totem for his ultimate. The Recluse is your magic class, and is probably the most complicated character to play due to her ability to let her siphon elements from enemies, allowing for a lot of different options for spells to use. The Executor is a katana-based class with the ability to parry and quite literally go beast mode, kind of like playing Sekiro, but if you were a werewolf. Now, the last 2 characters here must be unlocked after playing for a bit, but the Duchess is a dagger-focused magic class with insane mobility, and honestly, it kinda ass invisibility ultimate, but on the bright side, her ability to rewind damage previously done a few seconds prior is insanely good. And finally, the Revenant is a summoner class that focuses on incantations, so things like lightning, fire, and holy stuff. For weapon options for these characters, their starting weapon type is usually what's best for them, but that being said, you'll run into a lot of weapons you could use as well outside of this, but they probably just won't be as good for your character as they would be for another. So far, I've enjoyed pretty much every class I've played, but I found myself returning back to Raider the most, followed by Revenant and Duchess, both of which I surprisingly really enjoyed. Beating down enemies with the Raider and getting a massive stagger is just always fun. The Duchess just feels incredibly smooth to play with her sort of double dodge passive. It kind of feels like you're playing Bloodborne with the amount of mobility that you get. And the Revenant summons are insanely helpful for pulling aggro and for making fights a bit interesting. Now, after everyone's picked a character, like any good patriot, you'll fly in on an eagle to a pre-selected location on the map, and there's your run. Because of the 2 full day limit before having to face down the final boss, unlike most of the Souls games that usually emphasize slow, methodical gameplay, with Nightreign, you'll be running around at Mach 10 to do everything you possibly can within this time limit to maximize your total level. And by running around, I mean this literally, as instead of using your trusty steed, they've swapped out Torrent for supersonic sprint for every character. So, sorry to disappoint the equestrian girls, but this one might not be for you. The level up system also diverges here from Souls games as to coincide with the overall high-speed gameplay. Leveling up simply involves pressing a button at the site of grace, and you'll level up a pre-selected array of stats that correspond to your class. Although there are basic enemies you'll be killing to get a bit of runes across the map, more than anything you'll be traveling from location to location to rush down and kill the area's boss, which will drop a variety of possible items ranging from permanent stat increases, certain unique abilities for your character, or weapons. For this reason, the game definitely has a boss rush aspect to it as opposed to other Souls games, which have players usually spending a lot of the time working through an area and its obstacles. And so the obvious design philosophy that's gone into Elden Ring Nightreign is to focus on 2 things in particular. It's roguelike and co-op elements, building off of some of the foundational elements of Elden Ring, but adding these components to change its overall gameplay loop. From a co-op perspective, as I've discussed, I think it does it relatively alright. Great with friends, and with randoms, it can be hit or miss. As for the roguelike elements of the game, I think it succeeds in achieving a fun, replayable loop with friends, but falls flat in some areas, especially when compared to some other roguelikes. Although I do find runs to be fairly well randomized in terms of what weapons and items you'll have to work with, there is a pretty big lack of randomization in the map as a whole. Although there are a few map modifiers that can change an area of the map every run, the overall map layout for the game will largely remain the same with only some minor alterations each run. Many of the locations do feel the same, and in some locations you'll pretty consistently be running into the same enemies, and even sometimes the same bosses. The greatest mix-up in what bosses you'll be fighting come in the nightly final boss in the Goals, still unsure how to say this, but with these, things feel a bit more randomized, and you'll usually have a bit more of a memorable fight. As you beat more bosses, you will unlock a bit more randomization through map modifiers, but early on especially, runs feel almost identical, which is definitely disappointing in terms of making a good first impression. But even with that in mind, there are only currently 8 final bosses to beat, so after you've completed these, you're pretty much done with the game and stuck with only those 8 or so modifiers. I would personally like to see things have a bit more randomization with a lot more random events in the game to mix things up. The base game Elden Ring map is already huge, and with DLC, there's even more to pull from, and for bosses and enemies, we're already pulling from past games, so just throw some of those guys in there too. So please, more modifiers. Except things like this stupid locust swarm that steals your levels. This stupid fucking mechanic will derail your entire run, and if you don't Google and figure out how you're supposed to look for the enemy you're supposed to kill, you're just going to permanently lose levels if you get sometimes hit by an unavoidable AoE attack. Stupid fucking mechanic. That being said, as you play, unlike a strict roguelike, this game does have more roguelike elements, with the ability to get permanent upgrades and character progression. Relics are given to players at the end of every run and can be equipped at a little altar based on a color to one of the 3 slots for a character. They seem to have a somewhat random collection of stat buffs, but there are definitely some that are a lot better than others. Would be really nice to see some stats as to how much each of these are actually affecting the stats of something, but just kind of got to deal with how it is for now. After playing enough, you can unlock relics that give certain buffs to only certain characters, which can be very helpful depending on the class. These relics can be obtained usually from beating a boss, purchasing them from a shop, or completing parts of a character's remembrance questline. These questlines are kinda easy to miss at first, but feel very important. These questlines can be completed by playing as a certain character, talking to NPCs, or completing certain objectives on your run. Through these questlines, you'll unlock a bit of lore, and most importantly, some relics that are good for your character. Now, outside of actual stat-based progression, you do have a bit of cosmetic progression as well with your character's outfits. Now, there aren't too many options for these, but it's still a nice touch, I guess, although it does kind of suck that the Dark Souls outfits are locked until you beat the game. Like, what the fuck is even the point of that? I will say, though, that a lot of the base outfits here feel pretty pricey, as you'll probably be earning 2,000 of whatever the hell the credits are called here per run if you get to the final boss. And you'll also need to be using these to purchase certain relics and relic build options for different color variations. So personally, that's something I would change a bit. So although I think Nightreign does utilize some roguelike elements for the gameplay loop well, it does fall flat in some areas as compared to other roguelikes in my opinion. Overall though, I thought the game was pretty solid, and outside of a few minor gripes like that stupid locust swarm, and I'd ideally like the ability to see my stats and scaling for characters and weapons a bit easier, I thought the game was pretty great. I just want more of it, honestly. I want more bosses, more character customization, more map modifiers. I just want more, which is always a good and easily fixable problem for a game to have. As it stands though, for $40, I think it's easily worth the price, and I'm looking forward to see what possible DLC or additional content is going to come for the game in the future. So I guess that's the end of the video. I hope this is what you expected. Probably worse than what you expected, let's be honest with ourselves here. But either way, I appreciate you watching. And of course, I got to give a special thanks to this month's patrons. Mads, Dave the Unknown, Griff, Einar Anderson, Turmeric, Maddie Grady, Kenny, Daddy Yam, Bup1, Olafur, and Consism. Get out of here. Go outside, play Elden Ring. I don't know, man. It's your life. So I guess, until the next one, take care.